16 years old. It's an age for awkward school dances and agonizing over test scores, not for Julius Caesar. When his father died in 100 BC, Caesar found himself plunged headfirst into the whirlwind world of Roman politics. No time for grief. It was time for action. He was now the head of a prestigious, if somewhat fading, family. Rome, in all its glory and ruthlessness, awaited. The Caesars weren't just any family. They had a lineage that whispered of gods and past glories. This heritage came with expectations, rivals, and a whole lot of pressure. Young Caesar, however, wasn't one to shy away from a challenge. He embraced the political arena with the same zeal he'd later show on the battlefield. Little did Rome know a storm was brewing. Politics in Rome was a blood sport, and marriage was just another weapon in the arsenal. Caesar, ever the strategist, understood this from the get-go. His first significant move, dumping his fiancée, Cossutia. She came from money, sure, but Caesar had his eyes on a bigger prize, Cornelia. Cornelia wasn't just any patrician daughter. She was the daughter of Cinna, a man who'd once challenged the iron grip of Sulla, Rome's latest dictator. Marrying Cornelia was a direct jab at Sulla, a declaration that Caesar wouldn't be cowed. Sulla, unsurprisingly, was less than thrilled. He demanded Caesar divorce Cornelia. Caesar, in a move of almost suicidal boldness, refused. Sulla, used to obedience, was enraged. Caesar was stripped of his inheritance, his priesthood, and his wife's dowry. He was declared an enemy of the state and forced into hiding.
They told me to wait, to obey, but I was never meant to follow. The Senate fears me. The people whisper my name. They think I want power. They're wrong. I want everything.
Hiding from a dictator like Sulla wasn't a walk in the park. Caesar contracted malaria, was nearly captured by Sulla's soldiers, and lived every day with a price on his head. Yet he persevered. Finally, through the pleas of powerful friends, and perhaps Sulla's grudging respect for the young man's defiance, Caesar was pardoned. He could return to Rome. But Rome, Caesar would soon discover, had a long memory. Seeking glory and an escape from the whispers that followed him, Caesar headed east. He joined the army, proving himself a capable soldier and a charismatic leader during campaigns in Asia. It was during this time that rumors began to swirl about Caesar and Nicomedes IV, the king of Bithynia. Their supposed affair would become the stuff of Roman gossip for years to come, a stain on Caesar's reputation that he could never quite erase. Returning to Rome after Sulla's death, Caesar was determined to make his mark. He honed his skills as an orator, his speeches becoming legendary for their wit and fiery rhetoric. He climbed the political ladder, holding various positions and making powerful allies, and even more powerful enemies. But fate, it seemed, had a rather embarrassing detour in store for the rising star. On a voyage to Rhodes to further his education in oratory, Caesar was captured by pirates. Now, most people would be terrified. Not Caesar. He treated his captors with a mixture of amusement and disdain, demanding a higher ransom and promising to crucify them all once he was free. The pirates, initially amused, soon learned that Caesar was a man of his word. Upon his release, he raised a fleet, hunted them down, and true to his word, had them crucified. Caesar's ruthlessness with the pirates, coupled with his military successes against Mithridates in Asia, solidified his reputation as a man to be reckoned with. He returned to Rome, a conquering hero, ready to claim his
Under Caesar. He crossed the Rubicon like it was a footpath. The Senate trembled. We cheered. He gave us gold and a purpose. And Rome? Rome bent the knee.
Place in the ever-shifting landscape of Roman politics. His ambition, however, wouldn't be contained by the walls of Rome for long. His gaze, ever restless, turned towards Spain. It was there, amidst the dust and heat of battle, that Caesar would truly come into his own. He subdued rebellious tribes, proved his military genius, and returned to Rome wealthier, more powerful, and more feared than ever before. The die was cast. The teenage politician who had defied a dictator was now a force to be reckoned with. The world, he seemed to be saying, was not enough. The rise of Caesar had begun. Ah, Julius Caesar. The very name conjures images of power, ambition, and those stylish laurel wreaths. But before the Rubicon, before Veni, Vidi, Vici, there was a younger, scrappier Caesar, making a name for himself and ruffling a few togas in the Roman Republic. Picture it, Spain, not exactly the heart of the action. Caesar, a rising star, was serving as governor, no doubt dreaming of grander stages. Then word arrived from Rome. Unrest, intrigue, the Senate was in an uproar. Now, a dutiful governor might have stayed put, ensuring stability in his province, not Caesar. He smelled opportunity, packed his bags, and hot-footed it back to Rome. Duty. Pah! Ambition beckoned. Some whispered that Caesar had left unfinished business in Spain, debts unpaid, and promises broken. Others muttered about a certain ambitious fire in his eyes, a hunger for power that wouldn't be satisfied in the provinces. Whatever the truth, Caesar's sudden return set tongues wagging in Rome. The game was afoot, and our hero, dear viewer, was just getting started. Now, to understand Caesar, we must understand his partnerships. These alliances were the bedrock of his rise to power, the stepping stones that led him to the pinnacle of Roman politics. And no partnership was more potent, more whispered about than his alliance with Marcus Licinius Crassus. This was not just a simple political alliance, it was a calculated move, a strategic partnership that would change the course of Roman history. Crassus, as you may know, was a man of immense wealth and even greater ambition. His riches were legendary, amassed through shrewd business dealings and, some say, less than honorable methods. He was a man who could buy anything, except the one thing he truly desired: power. He yearned for power, for the respect that eluded him despite his fortune. His wealth was a double-edged sword, envied by many but respected by few. He needed a way to convert his financial clout into political influence. Caesar, on the other hand, possessed charisma in spades and a name that resonated with the people. He was a man of the people, a leader who could inspire and rally the masses. But charisma alone wasn't enough to climb the political ladder in Rome. He lacked, however, the financial resources to truly make a move for the top spot. His ambitions were grand, but his pockets were not deep enough to fund his political campaigns and buy the loyalty he needed. It was a match made, if not in heaven, then certainly in the shadowy backrooms of the Roman Senate. Their partnership was a perfect blend of wealth and charisma, ambition and strategy. Together, they were unstoppable. Details are scant, shrouded in the mists of time and the self-serving memoirs of Roman historians. The true nature of their alliance is lost to history, buried under layers of propaganda and myth. But rumors swirled like smoke from a sacrificial pyre. Whispers of secret meetings, clandestine deals, and grand schemes filled the air. The people of Rome were captivated by the intrigue, the drama of it all. A plot was afoot, they said, a plan to seize control of the Senate, perhaps even to establish a triumvirate that would rule Rome. Heady stuff. The idea of a triumvirate, a three-man rule, was both thrilling and terrifying to the Roman populace. Of course, both men publicly denied such scurrilous accusations. They presented themselves as loyal servants of the Republic, dedicated to the welfare of the state. Their public personas were carefully crafted to deflect suspicion and maintain their influence. They were merely concerned citizens, they claimed, looking out for the interests of the people. But the whispers persisted. The people of Rome were not so easily fooled. They knew that where there was smoke, there was fire. And in the case of Caesar and Crassus, the fire was just beginning to burn. Now imagine, if you will, a coup d'etat. What springs to mind? Armed men storming the forum, senators cowering in fear. Well, dear viewer, in the case of Caesar and Crassus, think a little more fashionable. Yes, fashionable. The plan, or so the whispers went, involved a certain Lucius Sergius Catilina, a man of noble birth and dubious morals. Catilina, deeply in debt and with a penchant for the finer things in life, had agreed to be the muscle in this enterprise. The date was set, the signal was given, and then nothing. Oh, the indignity. It turned out that one of the conspirators had gotten cold feet and spilled the beans, or perhaps the beans and a goblet of wine, to the authorities. The coup was foiled, the plotters scattered. Caesar and Crassus, ever the political animals, managed to distance themselves from the debacle, but the incident left a mark, a stain on their reputations, and a taste for power unsated. The Piso Conspiracy whispers in the forum. The Piso Conspiracy, my dear viewers, was a tangled web indeed, a tale of intrigue and betrayal whispered in the shadowy corners of the forum. It was a time when the air was thick with suspicion, and every shadow seemed to hide a secret. The Forum, once a place of public discourse and civic pride, had become a stage for clandestine meetings and hushed conversations. It involved, as these things often do, a disgruntled senator, a foreign power, and enough rumors to fuel 1,000 chariot races. The senator in question, Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso, was no ordinary man. He was a figure of considerable influence and ambition, whose dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs led him down a dark path. At the heart of this shadowy affair was Gnaeus Calpurnius Piso, a nobleman with a grudge and a penchant for plotting. His motivations were complex, driven by personal vendettas and political aspirations. Piso's discontent was not just with Caesar, but with the entire system that he believed had wronged him. Caesar's name, as if magnetized to scandal, was soon drawn into the mire. His every move was scrutinized, and his every word dissected. The whispers grew louder, suggesting that Caesar himself might be the puppet master behind Piso's scheme. Was it true, or was it merely a convenient narrative for his enemies? Was he, as some whispered, the mastermind behind Piso's scheme? The idea was tantalizing, a story fit for the most dramatic of plays. It painted Caesar as a cunning strategist, always several steps ahead of his rivals. But the truth, as always, was far more elusive. Or was he, as he vehemently claimed, an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire of Roman politics? Caesar's own declarations of innocence were passionate and persuasive. He portrayed himself as a victim of slander, a man unjustly accused by those who sought to bring him down. The details, as is so often the case with these ancient conspiracies, are frustratingly vague. The records we have are incomplete, and the accounts are often contradictory. Historians have debated the true nature of the Piso conspiracy for centuries, each new discovery adding another layer of complexity to the story. We do know that Piso was accused of treason, of conspiring with the Gauls to destabilize Rome. The charges were serious, and the evidence, though circumstantial, was compelling enough to warrant a trial. The courtroom became a battleground, with both sides presenting their case with fervor. We also know that Caesar, never one to miss an opportunity, used the trial to his advantage, delivering fiery speeches that condemned Piso and cast himself as a defender of the Republic. Was he being sincere? Caesar's oratory skills were legendary, and he knew how to sway a crowd. His speeches were filled with patriotic fervor, painting Piso as a traitor and himself as the savior of Rome. Or was it all a cunning act of political theater? The line between reality and performance was often blurred in Roman politics. Caesar's actions could be seen as a masterful piece of political theater, designed to strengthen his position and discredit his enemies. The answer, dear viewer, is lost to the sands of time. The true nature of the Piso conspiracy remains one of history's great mysteries, a story that continues to captivate and intrigue. As we delve into the past, we are reminded that history is not just a series of events, but a complex tapestry of human emotions, ambitions, and secrets. Bread and circuses, Caesar's public spectacles. Now, while Caesar was busy navigating the treacherous waters of Roman politics, he never forgot the importance of keeping the people happy. He knew that the key to maintaining power was not just through political maneuvering, but also through winning the hearts of the common people. And how better to do that than with a good old-fashioned spectacle? Gladiatorial games, chariot races, theatrical performances, these were the bread and butter of Roman entertainment. Caesar understood that these events were more than just pastimes. They were essential to the social fabric of Rome. Caesar spared no expense in providing entertainment for the masses. He organized grand festivals that featured not only the traditional games, but also exotic animals, elaborate parades, and sumptuous feasts. These events were designed to dazzle and awe the populace, creating a sense of unity and shared experience. He understood, you see, that a populace distracted by entertainment was less likely to notice or care about the machinations of their leaders. By keeping the people entertained, Caesar could ensure that they remained loyal and supportive, even as he made bold political moves. Of course, these lavish displays of public generosity weren't just about keeping the mob entertained. They were also a way for Caesar to curry favor with the common people, to build a power base independent of the Senate. By positioning himself as a benefactor of the people, Caesar could bypass the traditional power structures and appeal directly to the masses. They were also a way for Caesar to curry favor with the common people, to build a power base independent of the Senate. By positioning himself as a benefactor of the people, Caesar could bypass the traditional power structures and appeal directly to the masses. This strategy allowed him to consolidate power and maintain control, even in the face of opposition from the Senate. And who better to serve as a foil to Caesar's extravagance than his fellow consul, the austere and deeply unpopular Marcus Calpurnius Bibulus? Bibulus, with his stern demeanor and frugal ways, stood in stark contrast to Caesar's flamboyant and generous nature. Where Caesar was flamboyant and generous, Bibulus was dour and frugal. This contrast only served to highlight Caesar's appeal to the people. While Bibulus preached austerity and restraint, Caesar offered excitement and abundance. Their rivalry became legendary, a source of endless amusement for the Roman people. The citizens of Rome delighted in the drama and spectacle of their political leaders' clashes, seeing it as yet another form of entertainment. One particularly amusing anecdote tells of how Bibulus, in a fit of pique, tried to declare all of Caesar's actions void by claiming that the omens were unfavorable. This attempt to undermine Caesar only made Bibulus look more out of touch with the people's desires. The people, of course, saw this for what it was, a desperate attempt to upstage a master showman. They were not fooled by Bibulus's tactics and continued to support Caesar, whose spectacles brought joy and excitement to their lives. Caesar, ever the pragmatist, simply shrugged off Bibulus's pronouncements and continued with his games. The people loved it. They saw Caesar as a leader who understood their needs and desires, someone who could provide not just stability but also entertainment and wonder. In the end, it was this connection with the people that solidified Caesar's power and ensured his place in history as one of Rome's greatest leaders. Rome, 63 BC. A city of grandeur and decadence where the streets buzzed with the whispers of power and ambition, a den of intrigue. Power plays lurked around every corner, and the shadows held secrets that could topple empires. Ambitious men plotted in the shadows, their eyes set on the highest seats of power. Into this viper's nest strode Julius Caesar, fresh from his election as praetor. His presence commanded attention, his ambitions were clear. A mere magistrate, not our Julius. He was destined for greatness, and he knew it. Day one, Caesar dropped a bombshell. The Senate was unprepared for what came next. He demanded a full audit of Rome's treasury, a move that sent shockwaves through the political landscape. The target? His predecessor and nemesis, the corrupt Marcus Junius. Caesar's challenge was personal and political. This was no mundane accounting exercise. It was a strategic maneuver, a calculated risk. This was a declaration of war. The Senate seethed. Caesar smiled. The game was afoot and the stakes were high. Caesar, you see, had a knack for turning the tables. He was a master strategist, always thinking several steps ahead. He knew the power of public opinion. The people were his greatest weapon, and he wasn't afraid to use it. His speeches could sway the masses, ignite passions, and rally support. He understood the Roman appetite for spectacle, for scandal. The more dramatic, the better. And he was about to give them a show they'd never forget. The stage was set, and Rome was ready for the drama that was about to unfold. Caesar, ever the showman, knew his audience well. He understood the power of spectacle and the importance of connecting with the masses. The Roman people, tired of elite squabbles and endless political infighting, yearned for a champion who could bring change and stability. Caesar, sensing an opportunity to rise above the fray, decided to give the people what they wanted. He knew that by aligning himself with the commoners, he could gain unprecedented support. He threw his weight behind a series of populist laws. Land redistribution, debt relief. These were not just policies. They were promises of a better future for the downtrodden. The commoners roared their approval, seeing in Caesar a beacon of hope and a leader who truly understood their struggles. The elites, not so much. They viewed Caesar's actions with suspicion and fear. The Senate, a bastion of privilege and tradition, saw Caesar as a dangerous radical who threatened the status quo. His populist policies threatened their wealth and power, and they were not willing to give up their privileges without a fight. They accused him of courting the mob, of inciting unrest and destabilizing the republic, of aiming for nothing less than absolute power, a move that could spell the end of the republic as they knew it. And you know what? They were right. Caesar was not just a populist. He was a master strategist playing a long game. Caesar was playing a dangerous game, one that involved high stakes and even higher risks. But oh, what a game it was. A game that would change the course of history and leave an indelible mark on the Roman Republic. Tensions escalated. The Senate tried to block Caesar's every move. The people, enraged, took to the streets. A spontaneous riot erupted in support of Caesar. Chants of Caesar, Caesar filled the air. The city descended into chaos. Was it orchestrated by Caesar? Perhaps. Did he mind? Not one bit. The Senate, aghast, found themselves besieged in the Forum. This was no longer just politics. This was a full-blown crisis. The message was clear. Caesar was not to be trifled with. He had the people on his side, and he wasn't afraid to use them. Section 4. Conspiracy theories and cunning rebuttals. You can't prove a thing. The powers that be were rattled. Whispers of conspiracy followed Caesar like shadows. The Catiline conspiracy, a plot to overthrow the Republic, became a convenient cudgel. Caesar, they claimed, was involved. He was, after all, a dangerous populist. The evidence? Circumstantial at best. Caesar, a master of rhetoric, dismantled the accusations with ease. He turned the tables, accusing his enemies of slander, of fear-mongering, of trying to silence him. The people, ever eager for a good show, lapped it up. The Senate fumed. Caesar emerged once again, unscathed. Section 5. To Spain and back, conquering more than just territories. The Senate, desperate to neutralize Caesar, offered him a governorship. In Spain, a backwater posting, a polite exile. They hoped to sideline him, to keep him away from the heart of Roman politics. Caesar, ever the pragmatist, accepted. He saw an opportunity where others saw a dead end. He knew a strategic retreat when he saw one. This was not a defeat, but a chance to regroup and strengthen his position. In Spain, he honed his military skills. He won victories. He amassed a fortune. His leadership on the battlefield was unmatched, and his soldiers were fiercely loyal. He even found time to write a book. His writings would later become essential reading for military strategists. When he returned to Rome, it was as a conquering hero. The people adored him. The Senate feared him. His popularity had soared, and his influence was undeniable. He was now a force to be reckoned with. His time in Spain had transformed him from a politician into a military legend. Spain, it seemed, had been very good to Caesar. It had given him the tools and the confidence to challenge the very foundations of Roman power.